How's it going, everyone, and welcome to another episode of No Excuses on PGProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Arstil.
Fenarian.
And Volcel, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week that was, such as it was. Not that there was a great deal of news, but first of all, if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server and talk to the show hosts and other listeners to the show whenever you like, and post memes and discuss things that we talk about on the show, or post things that are liable to get us in trouble with Big Brother, and however many watch list people we're on watch lists for. And you can easily get to our Discord server by clicking on the link provided in the description underneath the archive of the show on YouTube.
Yes,
Yep.
indeed.
Yes, please come talk to us about how somebody could possibly be asphyxiated with 98% oxygen in their system.
No. Why you do this? Also,
Because it's so stupid, it's hilarious.
Also, why has this suddenly stopped working? So on the stream today, I'm going to try to play a bit of Grim Dawn, but it was working right up until the show started. Hang on.
This seems to be a pattern.
Yeah. Hang on. If I change that, and hit OK there, and refresh that, it should work. It's not working.
Why is it not working, man?
I don't know. Maybe I got to restart the program. So yeah, this is the story of my life. So yeah, I've got absolutely no energy today. I've just come off the weekend run.
Oh, man.
So hey.
Is it yet another Drunk Cowboy season for you? Oh, you got those celebrities over there right now, don't you?
We've got the reality TV people so far. They've all been really nice. They're pretty cool people for the most part.
Well, they probably don't want the news to get around to their horrible, unpleasant people, because they always need to invade small communities in order to do their thing.
Until they get money. Although there are tourists who are starting to creep in, and they keep asking, like, where is Survivor recording? And
even if you knew, you wouldn't be allowed to tell them, right?
I'm not under an NDA, so I could tell them.
You didn't get NDA.
But I'm not going to anyway, because you're not going to get anywhere near the recording sites.
Oh, good. You didn't sign that stupid piece of paper.
I didn't have to. I've had absolutely no official dealings with them.
Yeah, I thought you said your county sent the NDA out to everybody.
No,
or
just
your county equivalent.
Just people who are businesses who are having actual dealings with them.
I see.
Yeah, the councils by and large, they provide location, they provide a bit of incentive funding, and I think that's about all their thing on it. There we go. Now everything's working. So, yeah, I'll just play a bit of Grim Dawn on the stream. This isn't vanilla Grim Dawn, though. I found a mod that basically combines all of the additional class mods into one.
What do you mean?
Like, there's maybe 4 or 5 mods out there which add a bunch of new classes to the game, plus a couple of ports from Titan Quest and Diablos 2 and 3. So this mod just mashes them all together and everything is playable in one mod. It now gives you choice paralysis, so there's that. There's also 6 different flavors of Necromancer now.
I've always had this sort of irrational, and I mean it when I say irrational dislike of modding new classes into games. I feel like it somehow, no matter how well or poorly it was originally balanced, I feel like you're tainting the balance if you add in another class. Because there's some part of my mind which says, well, if you're just going to use another class, you could just make it as powerful as you want, couldn't you?
You potentially could, but you could do that with every kind of mod.
Yeah, I know, and it's sort of, that's why I say it's irrational. But there's something about adding a whole other class that's just made up by somebody into the game that I feel is a little bit dubious, because there's no DM to say no, that's bullshit. You can't do that.
Yeah, I think most games I kind of agree with that. Like when people put an additional class into most games, it's always kind of half-assed and it doesn't quite mesh with everything. ARPGs, I think, are the exception, where every class is basically, here's a whole bunch of monsters, here's a few different flavors of thing to blow up a whole bunch of monsters, go nuts.
I suppose because it's partly because for me, part of the game is to to take the thing that the manufacturer thinks is the designer thinks is balanced and find a way to break it,
Yeah.
as opposed to something that is made by a person who is either clever enough to ensure that it can't be broken or doesn't care if it's broken.
Mm-hmm. That said, though, there are some mods out there where people have taken meticulous care to keep things balanced. Here we go. Now I've unlocked the
See, the thing is,
class list.
the thing is that I feel like that's almost as unfun.
It can be, yeah.
If there's no way to come up with something really cool to exploit the mechanics, is almost as unfun as if it's really easy to exploit the mechanics.
Yeah. Let me see. What kind of character do I want to make here? Also, sorry if you can hear hammering in the background. There is hammering in the background.
Is there ever a time where your house isn't being worked on?
No, there is not. And it's really annoying. Let's see. Dual wielding. I do dual wielding. I think I might do dual wield guns. Let's do that. So yeah. Oh, hey, this is an idea. Arcane Gunner. Let's do that. Alright. As far as my week's concerned, it's been a pretty quiet one. By and large, it's just been devoured by Monster Hunter. But I'm not going to fill my week up with that. Although I have hit high rank in Monster Hunter Rise. I actually just hit high rank class level 5 just before the show, and I'm kind of annoyed because the monster to get up to 5-star high rank quest is Duratotus. And you can give it all the ominous haikus you want. Duratotus is just not scary.
He's a
not
mudfish.
It's a mudfish.
There's no way to spin that. Like, he's an uncool boy.
He is not a good boy. He is a terrible, terrible weird fish thingy. They made him slightly more aggressive, and that's about it.
Well, the thing is that aggression wasn't really the problem. The problem was that he was just not very good at fighting because he's a mudfish.
Yeah, so most of his attacks involve just kind of flailing around.
By the time I was finished farming him, because there was some reason that I had to farm him, I think like I had no water weapons or something, I realised, so I needed to farm him a bunch.
Yep.
And I got it down to the point where I could open up on him with the bow and then just pin him down till he was dead with it.
Oh, yeah.
And
this is like tempered Duratotus, and I'm just gunning him down, and there's nothing he can do about it. It's like this. I almost feel bad for this mudfish. He didn't ask for this. He was just lying in his mud hole.
Yeah. So yeah, he's basically the same dealie. I did have a little trouble with him because he's high rank, and admittedly, I've gone into high rank, and I'm still using low rank armor. As I just haven't seen the need to really upgrade at this point.
I did that in World as well. Like
yeah.
I think that I didn't upgrade my armor until Legiana.
Yeah. I'll probably hit that point very soon because high rank 5 gives you Rathalos and things like that, so you're actually starting to get some of the stuff that's really worth making.
After Legiana, I didn't upgrade my armor until Valhazak.
Oh my.
And when I say until then, I mean until I had killed that.
Oh dear. Then you went straight into Valhazak's armor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had to kill Teostra wearing Legiana's armor as well, and let me tell you, that was not fun.
Yeah, don't do that.
I did it though.
If you want a hard mode Teostra, you do that.
Ari, how come his fire doesn't hurt you nearly as bad as it hurts me? I just don't understand. What's your fire resistance?
You're wearing armor made of ice.
Like -20.
Oh dear, oh dear. So yeah, it's been a good time. I still think the hunting horn is a bit overpowered, although maybe it's just because I'm used to old school hunting horn still.
Embrace the doot.
Embrace the doot. Got a honk and bonk. All that stuff about iframes last week I was talking about with the wire bug moves starts to go away once you hit low rank 5-star. And once you kind of hit that point, monsters that hit you hard enough will break it. Usually if they're using one of their big signature attacks, they'll break it.
So is this like basically how are you saying this? Is this like the invulnerability frames are not invulnerability frames, they have a damage threshold, or is it that
I'm
in
not.
high rank the invulnerability frames are just turned off, or what?
No. They are still there. It's just sometimes they just don't work. I'm not
So
entirely
please-
sure what the threshold is to say what hits you and what doesn't hit you through them. Except for grapples. Grapples are pretty obvious.
This sounds like the nightmare scenario I mentioned last week, where you have these invincibility frames on this move that work consistently for everything, except for these a few random things the
And
game just
except
decides
when
they
they
don't
don't.
work for.
When they don't.
Yeah, by and large, I just don't take them for granted at this point.
But you're not supposed to get hit in Monster Hunter. If you get hit, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
But I can't fault the player for thinking a tool they have used consistently that's been reliable suddenly not being reliable is a little BS.
yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what the threshold to say what works and what doesn't on them, but yeah, there's got to be some sort of logic to it. Doesn't make any sense if there isn't.
Oh, there's probably a logic to it. I'm wondering how if they telegraph clearly which attacks you can't dodge through or use the moves that make you invulnerable to everything else.
Yeah,
Because if there's no indicator that these attacks are special, that's some BS right there.
the first time I encountered it, it was very clear because it was against Zenogre. Zenogre in rage mode, he just ignored it entirely. But it's really obvious in that case.
Ignoring things and hitting you anyway is pretty much Zenogre's deal.
It's kind of his shtick, yeah.
Like I've had very few encounters with Zenogre because I stopped playing around the time he was added to the game, in Iceborne. But he just doesn't care what you do. He's going to make your day bad.
Yeah.
And he has any number of different ways of doing it.
It be what he do.
Is he even an elder dragon?
Nope.
No, he's just a really angry boy.
He is a
Angry
very,
lightning
very
boy.
angry boy. So yeah. By and large, I'm going to roll my week over for that. Anime, also keeping up on it. Like Hero Arca seem to be bogging down on some sort of competition arc at the moment.
Another tournament arc? Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah, it's like Class A versus Class B, and they're doing some head versus head thing in the industrial complex.
I see.
So yeah, that seems like that's where this arc is going to go.
I actually kind of like conceptually, I like the idea that they have a Class B, because it's something that most of the other shonens just lack. They don't have they often it's normal to have, say, a rival character, and it's normal to have an opposing school, but it's not quite so normal, not quite so common for there to be, the people that just missed out on being the top dogs by a hair and are now in this sort of strange position where they could get they know that they're only a hair worse, but they don't get any of the kudos, and they're sort of bucking for a transfer to the upper classes, so to speak.
Yeah, they're also getting rather salty because Class A keeps getting caught up in all these shenanigans, and
So they keep getting
pulling ahead because of them.
They keep getting to make a name for themselves. They keep getting to get real experience and that sort of thing, and it feels unfair. It feels unfair that they get to pull ahead, that everything seems to go their way all the time.
Yeah, so this arc seems to be all about giving Class B a bit of time to shine. So you can actually see what they do, what their powers are, and who they are, instead of just being overshadowed by girl with big hands and ridiculously hammy idiot.
Of course, the issue with that from a conceptual and structural perspective for the story is that it gives you humongous cast bloat.
Oh my yes. And it looks like they've had to introduce a whole bunch of new characters, because only previously Class B consisted of maybe 6 characters?
Yeah, the crazy freaky guy,
Big Hands Girl, Plant Lady, Sasquatch Guy, and
Horsey Girl.
And what's that?
Horsey Girl was one of them, wasn't it?
Horsey Girl? I can't remember Horsey Girl.
I don't know who you're talking about either.
I thought there was one that looked like a horse.
It probably is. The other one was the guy who did the force cubes with the weird face.
Ah.
It also gives the chance for a few of the characters from Class A to actually do something. Like Kota actually gets to do something for a change. He fails, but he tries.
Gets his participation trophy.
Yeah, you attempted to punch a guy in the face with a fistful of bees trophy. I mean, 10 points for style.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to get punched with a fistful of bees. That sounds really bad.
It does. Other anime, Spider anime is continuing on, and I'm actually surprised. The last 2 episodes, stuff happened.
Yeah, stuff is actually finally happening.
Yes.
Except that the entire thing is still completely inscrutable because of the wonky timeline.
Yes.
Like, no matter how much I try and appreciate whatever's going on, it still comes down to, well, I don't know when this is happening. I mean, this is all a foregone conclusion now, right? Because part of the story takes place in the future and part of the story takes place in the past, and we don't know where we are or what we're dealing with.
Yeah, especially the latest episode, because you've got the first half of the episode is the spider, and she rescues a baby who turns out to be a vampire, and then it cuts to the humans, and here is vampire baby fully grown. So yeah, the whole timeline is just completely out of whack for that show. Also, Deus Ex Feather Dragon, so that happened.
Well, I mean, they have been setting up for it for several episodes running.
True. So yeah, Spider continues to happen. I watched the first season of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord.
Really? You got through the whole season?
I'm not sure how. Maybe it's just because I just
I hope nobody saw you watching it.
I feel dirty, honestly. Like, the whole show is unashamedly fan servicey, but it's so ridiculous that you can't take it even remotely seriously. And yeah, Diablo is very much the Mary Sue, despite his insecurities.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the point.
This is the point of the whole. It's kind of the point. Yeah.
I mean, in the second season, it looks like they're ramping up the number of people who are sort of his equal, at least in terms of their capacity.
I think I've watched maybe the first half of episode 1 of season 2 because all right, let us start with tentacles.
Well, I mean, if you've watched the first season, you can sort of see why. That's sort of that's their shtick.
Yeah.
Their primary goal is titillation before all other things.
Is it though? It's too silly and too tasteless to be even remotely titillating.
Well, maybe. I don't even know. Like I almost feel like an outside observer when I watch this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what it's supposed to accomplish. But like you, I watched the whole first season despite normally finding such things incredibly distasteful.
Yeah.
And for some reason I was still amused, so
something was happening right, I guess. But for the life of me, I can't figure out how I actually got through it, because I look back at the time watching it, that was absolute garbage.
It was, but you ate all of that. You ate all of that junk food.
I ate all of that junk food, exactly. Like eating KFC.
Heart attacks.
I don't like KFC.
Do you hate your everything, basically? I can't brains. What else? Watch the new episode of Slime Diaries. The new episode still has the same problems that the first one did, although it has a bit more of a coherent plot through it this time.
I don't expect that's going to change. I think it's going to more or less stay on an even keel indefinitely.
Yeah, they've set with their completely inconsistent art style, and they seem to be just stay with that.
Yeah, I thought that there might have been like some kind of outcry after which they corrected it, or something like that, because they sometimes do that stuff. If there's an art inconsistency, they'll correct it partway through the run, and then the Blu-ray one will be touched up.
Yeah, I think it might be too much to change for this one though, because it looks like every character comes from their own pocket universe.
Well, I mean, there's some are more egregious than others.
Gabaru particularly is one. Gabaru has been exaggerated and incredibly sillified.
the idea that he needed any kind of sillification or exaggeration seems a bit absurd to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are still they're drawing to some extent from the source material. Because like for instance, Lilina is one of the offhandedly mentioned side characters in the books. She's not mentioned at all in the main series of the anime, but she's mentioned in the books as being Rimuru's Minister for Agriculture.
Yeah. In Slime Diaries, she kind of turns up because I was just thinking, hang on, who is this? And why are they acting so like we should already know who she is?
Well, because if you read the books, you would know who she is.
Yeah, but if you went to
But-
watch the anime, you don't.
Yeah, but yeah, she's Minister for Agriculture and a bunch of other miscellany, I think. But
Agriculture and stuff.
I think she's one of the only, if not the only, female of the Goblin Lords, because he appoints several lords to be ministers under Rigurd,
Mhm.
and they all have different roles, and she gets mostly the domestic stuff and agriculture and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that's that. Gabru Cilia Guild continues to annoy me because his new design has absolutely no way to show emotion. So he gets a bit of a highlight in this latest episode where he suddenly needs to actually show some emotion. So he art shifts, and he looks a lot like closer to his main series self.
I don't know why they did it like this though. Like,
Why would you
I
do
think
that?
I don't think that this series as a whole is a good idea, because while there's a certain amount of room to be plumbed there, the cast is sort of too large for it.
Yeah.
And they clearly don't have a very coherent plan going in. I think they could have gone a different route, I think, with this, and made like a spin-off series about one of the characters
Mm-hmm.
rather than about an entire cast. Like,
Or
you
even-
could make a series about Gobta, for instance.
That would actually be interesting.
And then you could do all the same silly stories, except that you've got a point of view character, so you can actually lock the run of the series progression to the behavior of an individual, as opposed to today Rimuru is bored, what will he do?
Yeah, that's basically what this episode is all about. Really, it's Rimuru.
Well, the thing is, I have a funny feeling that's going to be what every episode is technically about.
Mm.
Because that basically is the only thing that you've got to work with when everybody's on downtime because major plot events are not happening because they are restricted to the main series.
Yeah, honestly, that's one way I'd say you could improve the show. The other one is go full sketch show and just have the short run, quick fire sketch show comedy. But instead, you kind of got this weird halfway thing. And it pleases no one, I think.
Yeah, it just doesn't have comedic timing.
No, it doesn't.
It's a comedy with no comedic timing. I think that's the core issue with what they're doing, is that it's just a series of events,
Yeah.
a series of events happening, and if it had been structured like a gag manga or something, well then you've got a rhythm to adhere to, you've got a comedic timing structure to adhere to, where you've got your sort of your lead in, and you've got your crisis, and you've got your resolution distributed across the space available, as opposed to and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and it's not structured
Yeah.
very well.
So yeah, that's that. I really have to consider. Also, really wonder what Crunchyroll's algorithm is doing, because it keeps showing up a title or a tag for which is anime for smart people, and the two anime that are at the top of the pile are Pop Team Epic and that one about the sentient fart. Does Crunchyroll have a funny idea what smart people are?
Well, the people that work at Crunchyroll will watch Rick and Morty, so
The show that is unashamedly and insufferably smug. Yes.
They're
Not
all
sick
that
and smug.
person.
So beyond that, that is going to be my week. As I didn't do much. So Vol, air your shame.
Yeah, my shame. Oh no. So I took my shame is that I took a leaf out of Fenurian's book.
Yeah, don't ever do that.
Yeah. So because Monster Hunter exists, I had to get a Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
You
that's the
caved.
short version. I caved. It's like, well, I mean, I could play Monster Hunter, or I could not play Monster Hunter. And of these two options, ultimately, the only reason that I'm even hoarding all of this money in the bank, which is a terribly unwise course of action given the way the economy is likely to implode, is because I would like to get a house at some point. But the problem is that the property market has been completely obliterated by stupid people, basically.
Yes.
Because they look at the interest rates on loans and they're like, oh, the interest rates are all really cheap. That means that I can bid higher on houses, right?
Yeah, that's
So-
not how that works.
Property values have been dramatically inflated in this country because the media keeps reporting every evening about how low the interest rates are because, you know, we're about to undergo destructive hyperinflation like every other country who's engaged in an idiotic attempt to forestall a cold virus. The housing prices, generally speaking, in New Zealand are sort of approaching double what they should be for no reason. Like there's no value has been added to the market. People are just bidding higher and higher and higher because they feel like they can, quote, afford, unquote, more because of the interest rates.
Because they don't know how the interest rate actually work.
Well, I mean, the thing is that I feel like it's worse than that because it's like this speaks to a defective view of spending in the culture, that somehow it's not money if you're borrowing it. You don't have to pay it back.
Yeah.
You don't. If the interest rates are favourable for you to borrow money, yes, it's true. It allows you to borrow money and you can think bigger in your spending. It's true, but you still have to pay it back. And if you're purchasing an asset, that asset doesn't become worth more after the fact just because you paid lots of money for it. Everybody subsequently also has to want to pay that for it in order for its value to go up. And because the interest rate is temporary, it's always temporary, you can't guarantee that in any way. So it's just an idiotic move to make.
It's even dumber when you think about it, because yeah, you got all these great high interest rates. All these people are going to default on these loans eventually, and because of said hyperinflation that's incoming, the dollar value of those houses is going to be way more than what they originally borrowed from the bank.
That it'd be nice if that were the case, but that's not the case, because what's actually going to happen is that they will put those houses on the rental market and they will just up the rent everywhere.
Oh, right, rental markets are a thing in your part of the world, aren't they?
The thing with New Zealanders is that basically no New Zealander owns one house. Every New Zealander either owns no houses or 5 houses. It's a huge pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Because it means that people who just want a house so that they can live in it can't get one. Because everybody's hoovering them up for the rental market. And because they've got to keep paying off these houses, rent just spirals ever upwards. So you can't save enough money to enter the property market. And we're sort of stuck in this loop, which has gotten dramatically worse due to the interest rates. Because people are saying, oh, interest rates are low, that means I need to buy 5 more houses and keep 5 more families from being able to get a house. That's just the way the property market works in this country right now. Anyway, there's a long-winded way of explaining the fact that I looked at my bank account and I looked at the number in there and I'm like, I've got money and there's no way it's anywhere near enough to get in the housing market because I'd need to give like $400,000 and I don't even have, and that would be for a really crappy house. And yeah, that's where it starts around here.
Yeesh.
That's the entry level of the market. That's why I don't have a house. Anyway, and so I've got. Well, I don't even have a tiny fraction of what I need to actually accomplish what I want under the current conditions. So I pretty much have to wait for the property bubble to burst. Which, I mean, it will eventually. It has to.
Sooner or later it does. Yeah.
Bubbles always do. That's just the way of things. So yeah, I decided, I can use some of this money because I want to play Monster Hunter. Who's going to stop me? Yeah, so I picked up a Switch, and I was a bit leery of spending more than the minimum necessary amount of money. So I didn't get a controller with it, and I'm sort of regretting that a tiny bit now because I find that the Switch controller by default feels kind of weird to me. Like I'm
Yeah.
always afraid I'm going to break it.
It does
Yeah.
feel very flimsy.
I don't think it is flimsy, but it feels very
Yeah,
flimsy.
it's not. It's actually very durable, except for the Joy-Con drift. But yeah, it just feels very flimsy, especially when you take it out of the mount or off the console, because then you got these two tiny little bars.
Yeah.
They also don't feel made for Western man hands. They
Yeah.
feel like they're made for tiny Asian or woman hands.
People with very small hands.
Midget hands. But yeah, so I haven't had much time to actually use it, and I'm caved in it toward the end of the week, so I haven't had a lot of time to actually play around. But I have started Monster Hunter. I've just barely scratched the surface. Like I beat the Great Izuchi this afternoon. So that's how early I am on, and I'm not sure I really understand a lot of what's going on. The systems are close enough to World that I think I know how they work, and far enough from World that it turns out that I don't. So
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So yeah, like there's a lot of things that I just don't quite grasp. Like I don't know what the deal is with the field pouch, for instance. Nobody explained that. There's like an item pouch, and then there's the field pouch, in addition to your normal ammo pouch.
Yeah, the field pouch is where stuff you pick up out in the field goes, instead of it going into your regular item pouch and cluttering that up. So by and large, there's a lot more stuff that you can just, when you go back to base, it automatically deposits it in your chest.
Right.
So you don't need to do that massive unload after every mission.
Well, that's nice. But it didn't explain this to me in a way that I understood. That's for sure.
No, it does not, because it's Monster Hunter and tradition is a thing.
Yeah, and I got like scrolls or something for
your doggo.
My doggo, and it didn't tell me what to do with them or where they were in my inventory or anything like that. So yeah, I don't know what those are for or how to do anything with them.
You equip those at the buddy board, which is next to the main chest.
I see.
It will give you a tutorial about the buddy boards at some point.
So once I find the thing that I need in order to actually use them, then it will tell me how to use them. Great.
Yeah, in a lot of cases. It did in World 2.
Yeah, the character creation process has gotten 30% longer because of the addition of the doggo, and I don't know if it's weird, but I couldn't help but make my doggo look like our late beloved family dog.
I think everyone kind of does that.
So yeah, I've got a doggo now, and it makes me sad when I see it.
Yeah.
So I think it might have been a mistake.
You can put that dog in out to work and just get another dog if you want.
I thought you were going to say you can take that dog out behind the shed.
No.
This is Fern. Fern would never say such a thing.
I would never say such a thing, no. So, yeah. There is a system that you can either re-customize that dog or just go get a new dog.
Yeah, the doggo, while it's very convenient being able to ride around on the doggo, I feel like they make the maps feel kind of small.
They do a bit, yeah.
Because you can just move so fast.
They are actually smaller in a lot of cases.
They are actually smaller, but they feel even smaller because you can move like greased lightning.
Yeah.
And you can drift. You can drift on your doggo.
Yes, you can, and it is a lot
which is
fun.
very strange.
Yeah, a lot of the maps, they not only are they actually small, well, if you're going in terms of total play area, they're probably about the same as World, but World and particularly even older Monster Hunter maps have a lot of dead space on them. But Rise, there is none of that.
Have they learned that for the human character creator, that female humans do not have a square face?
No.
No, you have to work very hard to narrow them. Like if you turn all of the width stuff down to 0, then you get a normally feminine looking face.
Rather than the Lego brick head.
But everyone else looks like the Diablo 2 Amazon, the Diablo 2 remake Amazon.
Eek.
So
That's what my second grade teacher.
so I so I set the language to Japanese this time because I just don't like Monster Hunter English voice acting. It's
bad. It's always bad, and it's notoriously bad.
it's corny, but it's not quite corny enough for me to prefer it. It's close, but no cigar. But so I just went through and I idly picked a feminine Japanese voice for my character, and I don't remember it being like this in World, with the noises your character makes, but my character's very chatty.
Yeah, characters are a lot more vocal now. So
Yeah,
they'll shout out when a monster's doing its big attack or when it's ready for capture and things like that.
But my character has commentary on nearly everything.
Yes.
And she's not very smart. Like you can't tell what because you are not just picking a voice for your character. You're picking a character for your character when you select your voice. So be told.
Yes.
I don't know what the others are like. I don't know whether they're all the same or whether the one I picked is just the one I picked.
My character, because I left it on English mode and picked a male voice, sounds like he stepped right out of a 90s Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Cowabunga, man!
Not quite that bad, but yeah.
There is a guy who is that bad though.
Yeah, they do have a guy.
The tutorial guy. The tutorial guy. He uses. He thinks that he is a late 80s surfer.
And he's bad. He's annoying, but thankfully, after you do the first couple of missions, he goes and spends the rest of the game standing in a corner.
No, yeah. So I selected a character's voice, and I got a whole character who I actually find kind of charming, although she's clearly got a bit of short brain going on. But yeah, she's a bit. It gives off a bit of an airheaded impression. And is definitely very enthusiastic about everything, though. Definitely very keen on her job.
Excellent.
But yeah, so I'm having fun learning learning the ins and outs. But goodness only knows how long it's going to take me to get everything figured out. The whole capturing critters and stuffing them in a cage thing also sort of caught me by surprise.
Yep, you carry them around in your pockets now.
Yeah, you don't keep them though.
No, you don't.
So there's no reason to hoard them. Although, I mean, who plays Monster Hunter and can resist picking up anything they see lying around?
Oh yeah, if that A button prompt pops up, you press it. You just do.
I'm having a great deal of difficulty getting used to the idea of having a negative and a positive button on my controller as well.
Yeah,
that's very strange.
Bit of getting used to. Like that dates back to the Wii, and back then they were still round buttons, but on the Switch it's like a negative and positive shaped button.
Yeah, and they feel really weird.
They feel really strange because they're really small as well.
There's also a square button on the left-hand side, and I've never pressed it. Nothing has ever asked me to press it. Oh, is that what it does?
I think that's what it does.
Because
I've honestly never used it.
There is no manual that comes with the Switch whatsoever. So I had no idea what I was doing when I was trying to set this up, because I'm the sort of person who actually does read the manual cover to cover on a product that they buy. And I don't read the license agreement. But I had no idea what I was doing when I was assembling this thing and putting everything together. I still kind of don't. So it took me a while to work out a few of the things. But it's I'm surprised at how much gas they got out of such a ancient piece of technology. Because I mean, the chip in it is not great. It is not great. There's like a tablet, top of the line tablet from half a decade ago is what I would call it.
It does not have a whole lot of grunt to it at all.
But what they've managed to squeeze out of it, through sheer bloody-minded optimization of everything, is very, very impressive.
Yeah,
you don't see the real weaknesses in it in Monster Hunter very often at all. Like the biggest one that I notice is flying things that are sort of somewhat distant, where their frame rate will drop down to about 3,
Yep.
And so you will see the sort of a slideshow of wings in different positions. But that's about the only time it becomes egregiously obvious.
They actually did that in World as well, but it was very rare you actually had the opportunity to see it.
That comes to another thing, is that World's structure is basically it's the inside of a building. Most of their levels are the inside of a building with multiple floors that you move between.
Yep.
Whereas this is all outdoors landscapes that I've seen so far. And the reason for this is because of wirebugs, because of their enthusiasm for verticality has been taken to new heights. Whereas before it was always, well, we like verticality, but you've got to go and climb up staircases basically to see it. In this case, you just be a ninja, I guess.
Yeah, you flippy flop all over the place.
I feel like the controls for it are kind of wonky. I almost feel like I don't have enough fingers.
Yeah, that took a bit of getting used to for me, but once I got it down, it felt a lot better.
It's like, oh, I want to climb up a thing, so I've got to be moving, and I've got to hold down the left trigger, and I've got to hold down the right bumper, and I've got to press the X button all at the same time, and then run up this wall.
Yes.
This sounds like on a traditional controller, it's time to bust out the claw grip.
You do a little bit, yeah.
It's I hope I do get used to it, but there's a lot of things I'm not used to about this wirebug thing. Partly because it's sort of like, if you move from, say, playing God of War, let's say, for instance, just as a thing, and then you go and you try and play Metroid. Let's say Metroid Prime. Like, the eyes with which you have to look at your surroundings are totally different.
Yes.
Because in Metroid, you can move along things and under things and through things and slot into things and distort the level in all kinds of weird ways. Whereas in God of War, you don't. You just kill things. Mostly. So, what I mean when I say that is that the eyes that you have to look at the environment in Rise seem to be completely different to the ones you use in World.
Yes.
Because in World, you can't climb over that mountain, and there's nothing at the top because they know you can't climb over that mountain.
There's an empty void up there, if you really wanted to go up there.
In this one, if you just bloody-mindedly drag your ass all the way up to the top of the mountain, there'll be something up there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily very much, but there'll be something up there. And that comes to another thing, is that this I've only played on the shrine, the abandoned shrine map so far.
Mm-hmm.
But there's sticky outy swords in various places.
Yes.
They're places that would be inaccessible in World that you have accessed in Rise. But I don't know what these things are for.
They're lore dumps.
But how do I know that? like I don't know. I was told, oh yeah, there's these things. They are bits of lore. Talk to this guy in town and he'll do something with them. I talked to him, he didn't do anything with it.
Oh yeah, I haven't bothered with them honestly. But from that point, the most important thing is they give you 1,000 points.
Like I suppose when you have got a desperate hunger in for Dango early on, that's helpful.
Yes, and nauseatingly sweet little songs.
Yeah, Ina insists on watching the song every single time.
I admit I watched that more than I probably should.
But yeah, I don't know what those swords do. If they do anything, I don't know. Maybe they do something cool later when you've got lots of them or something. But I don't even know how to look in the menu to see how many I've found, whether I've found all of them. I don't know if there's a way to do that. There's a lot of things I don't know that aren't documented, so it definitely feels like Monster Hunter.
Yeah. The only gripe I've really got with the exploration system is you go to the ice map, and right at the back there's a mountain that looks like Ice Crown, pre-Ice Crown Citadel. But you can only climb about halfway up it. And then you hit an invisible wall.
Disappointing.
Very disappointing. Because it looks like there's that is a cool looking mountain, and there should be something cool at the top. But no. Not allowed up there. Also, here comes Kezu.
I haven't attempted to do anything with wirebugs in combat yet. I don't actually even know how, because they told me once and I forgot the button you press. So
the one thing I keep forgetting about wirebugs in combat is the wirebug evade, where if you get caught in a corner or smacked on the ground, you're about to get clobbered by monsters making a follow-up attack, you can use your Wirebug to get away.
Yeah, it's basically a super wake up of some kind.
Yeah.
And they told me the button to press to do that, and I promptly forgot that as well.
It's LZ or L2, and you dodge while you're holding that. And you kind of Wirebug in whatever direction you're pointing.
I see. Another interesting innovation is the unlimited kunai.
Yes.
Which I've had a lot of fun with.
One thing the game doesn't actually tell you, by the way, is you can aim them using the Wirebug reticle.
Oh, I thought that was obvious.
No.
I didn't realize it was the Wirebug reticle. I just thought it was the reticle.
Yeah.
So I've been using the reticle for all kinds of things.
So you can get your Nabra top hat very early just by using the infinite kunai.
Yeah. So there's lots of interesting things. I have been the thing I've been enjoying the most above all is the load times.
Yes.
Which like just being able to move between the hub and the village, like that is.
Yes.
It's a very strange feeling because I go to put the controller down, and then I have to put the controller back up again.
The fact that you can accept a mission and be already on the loading screen to go to the map before they even finish speaking.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of putting the controller down in World, and I just don't have time anymore.
Yeah, you don't have those big loading screens anymore, and it's beautiful. Whoops, this is bad.
Yeah. I very much like the aesthetic. Like I found the aesthetics in World kind of boring overall. Like I got what they were doing, and I appreciated it for what it was. But I like the Japanese aesthetic they've got going in this one much more. It's got much more character to it.
They've used the aesthetic before, particularly with towns heavy on Wyverians, but World they stripped a lot of that out. You had I think it was the leader of the second who kind of carried it a bit, and that was about it.
Well, I sort of understood because thematically it made sense. You were shipwrecked on a new island, basically.
Yeah.
And you various succession of shipwrecks over the years had basically made a big ball of, like, everyone's living in a shipwreck Katamari, basically.
Basically, yeah.
Like, but in this case, it's sort of like a long established village, which has clearly been here for hundreds of years, sort of thing.
Yeah. Monster Hunter 3 actually did the same thing, where you're basically living in a town that is made entirely of driftwood. But if you go play Monster Hunter Generations, you get to go to a lot of the old towns. Although the town for Monster Hunter 3 is just straight up gone. Because normally you go to the first map there, you can look off the edge of a cliff and you can see the town down below. But it's just gone. Incidentally, you can see the evolution of maps in Generations, where you go to anything pre or 3 or previous, and they're dead flat. But they've got a couple of little cliffs which they've just kind of added in later on. So you can use the 4th generation mounting mechanics, but you compare those to what Rise does, and it's just ridiculous how far they've come.
Yeah. At any rate, I've been enjoying it very much so. I'm looking forward to spending a lot of time playing it. The NPCs I think are a little bit more memorable as well, if only because of their terrible linguistic decisions.
Yeah, and for the first time ever, they've actually got names.
Yeah, there's actual names. It's in this novel as well. I like the twins. I think they're cute. Hinoa has a bit of an obsession with Dango though.
Yeah, I'm glad they only do the creepy twin thing that first time you meet them, and then that's it.
Well, the thing is that they're not even identical twins, so it's sort of a bit strange that they do that.
Yeah, Hinoa actually becomes a plot point later on, which is nice.
I see. Well, I haven't got any plot yet. I'm spending like in any good Monster Hunter play session. I've been spending so much time dicking about that I'm not really progressing.
Excellent. That's how it should be. Yeah, the world was very plot heavy, especially by Monster Hunter standards, where Rise takes a step back, so it's very plot light again. So there is a plot if you really care about it.
But they've got twice as many monsters, so who even cares?
Yeah. Because here's more monsters, let's go fight some things.
I don't know what they've done historically. Like, do they release new areas or anything?
In previous
expen-
games, no.
Yeah.
Yes and no. They do kind of a mid-generation game, so like 3 and 3 Ultimate. Ultimate added, I think, 1 more area and doubled the number of monsters.
Yeah, but there's basically a whole separate game you've got to buy again, though, right? It's not an
Exactly, yeah.
expansion.
World
Yeah.
was the first time they did a proper expansion, which added a new area and a whole bunch more monsters and plot and all that good stuff. Whoops.
I suppose I'm wondering on some level if did that work out for them? Do they feel that the response to that was better? Because to me, as from a customer's point of view, I like that better.
I
don't
like that a lot better myself.
I don't like having to just buy the game again because I want the extra content. That's not really very cool, in my opinion. But Iceborne, I felt was like 200% worth the money I spent on it.
Yeah, 'cause it was a fully blown expansion.
Yeah, it was a real expansion in the old school way of doing an expansion, like, you know, Shivering Isles or whatever.
I love that way of doing things, and I'm really sad we don't do that anymore.
Well, Capcom does, which is why I'm hoping that they've learned that lesson, that people like that. People worship you for that.
Yeah.
All you need to do is accomplish the level of performance that was being routinely done circa 20 years ago, and everybody will treat you like a god instead of like a normal company.
That's it.
So just do it. We've been going
money grubbing idiot.
We've been tumbling wildly downhill for 2 decades now. Just climb back up the hill, please.
Yeah. It's nice up here.
Yeah.
We have shiny things. And down there is Kezu, and don't play with Kezu.
As we speak fondly of days 20 years ago.
Yeah, but the people at the bottom of the hill have a lot more money than us. Those of us still on top of the hill.
Well, they're
hoping for.
us.
Yeah, that's sadly how things usually go.
Companies just collect more and more of those mommy's credit cards as they tumble down that hill.
Yep. Anyway, so I'll probably look at getting a real controller at some point when they are on special or something.
Yeah.
Since I think this is serviceable for the time being, but it just feels kind of weird.
I do have a GameCube controller for it, but it uses old school batteries, like AA's.
Oh my.
Nobody uses AA's anymore. Stop it.
Oh, you got the Wavebird?
No, it's actually an officially licensed one.
Yeah, that's the Wavebird.
It's called the Wavebird. That's what, because Nintendo have weird naming sense. They named their controller the Wavebird.
Okay.
That's what the GameCube controller is like officially referred to as.
I see.
That is at least the wireless version.
Yeah.
No, that was the name, because I remember when it was in development, that name was ascribed to it before it was even the name. I think even before the name GameCube came out, back when it was still referred to as Project Dolphin, the name Wavebird was leaked for the controller.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when they came out with the second version of the wireless one that had Rumble in it.
And that's another thing. The rumble in this controller feels freaking weird.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like there's some creature is crying at me when it goes off, because it makes such a weird noise when it vibrates.
Yeah.
It's like a rusty gate hinge or something.
It's supposed to be this whole full feedback rumble system. Like, it's got 3 or 4 different rumble gyros or something in it, which emulates different things. But a lot of games don't use that and just set them all off at the same time.
I feel like I just grabbed an angry stoat or something.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole thing just screams.
But yeah, so it's an interesting system. Like, there's so much about the Switch that now that I'm holding on to one, it's very interesting from a design perspective. Much more adventurous than what any other company is bothered with. So I can very much see how they can confidently make the unilateral declaration that they're no longer in competition with Sony and Microsoft, which, I mean, it's true in some ways and it's totally untrue in others. Like, I am holding this controller, playing this game, because I am not playing something on my PS4. Because my PS4 is pretty much now a committed deluxe anime device, where I can sit in my personal VR theater and watch anime on a big screen. But that's basically the only thing I use it for lately. So they're definitely in competition for the time of the customer base and the money of the customer base. But yeah, it's certainly a very interesting device, and the concept that you can use the 2 halves of the Joy-Con things as complete controllers for 2 people is also an interesting idea that I haven't seen actually used at all.
Yeah, although it's very tough to use with, adult-sized hands.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it's designed for kids anyway.
It is. That's the sort of... That whole system is basically advertised as, sit your little rugrats down, give them a controller each, and hopefully they'll leave you while you watch your stories.
It's a cool idea, though.
It's a kids and mom thing. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, but yeah. So I got the Monster Hunter edition one since they had the limited edition.
I never actually did find out what happened to my Monster Hunter 3DS, by the way. That got stolen years ago, and no idea what happened to it.
Yeah, but it's not like that has any particularly grand implications or anything, but it does look cool.
Yeah.
And considering that I did buy the system on the weight primarily of Monster Hunter, it feels appropriate. Although I had to argue myself into doing it based on other things that would be on it, which is basically the official announcement that the Emiya Family Cooking game is definitely coming to the West.
They put Fate on the Switch. It's a sold thing now.
And also because I want to play Touhou Spell Bubble, which looks like a game that I'm absolutely terrible at. Because it's basically just a match game, but it's a rhythm game at the same time. But because I'm a long time fan of all of that music, the Dojin music for Touhou, and all of the classics are on there. From 15 years ago or whatever. That's how old they are now. Yeah. What are you groaning about?
Just thinking about how old we were when I first found out and was messing with Touhou. It had been out for a while already. And that was 8 or 9 years ago.
But yeah, Touhou Spell Bubble is basically a combination, a block breaker rhythm game which has all the classic music as the rhythm component, like Bad Apple and Suno's Math Class and that sort of thing. So anime. Did I watch any new ones or watch any additional ones? What should I look at? There's a lot that I'm dodging this season because it just makes me cringe. There's a lot that I'm not dodging even though it makes me cringe. So last week I talked about Seven Nights. I watched the second episode of that and it's still super, super generic and there's nothing to recommend it. There's also nothing to actively dissuade you from watching it, which is not much of a consolation considering there's no reason to watch it either. We've already talked about Slime Diaries. We've already talked about How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. We've already talked about Spider-Man. Oh, right, there's a new season of Welcome to Demon School. I found that show oddly charming, so I'll probably watch the second season, but I didn't realise that it had aired. I watched the first episode of I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years and Maxed Out My Level, which is... it's got a name, that's for sure. But I actually kind of liked it. So the story is basically... it's an isekai. It's a standard pattern isekai. But... it seems to be taking a sort of a light-hearted approach. I don't know whether it's going to go, full-throated, we're having an adventure now after the first episode, but the first episode comes off basically like a slice of life of sorts. A bit more momentum than your typical slice of life, but it's still slice of life. So the main character is basically, she was a workaholic, like all of these isekai characters, and sort of what I think of as Generation 2 isekai. Basically, Generation 1 isekai is all about chuny teenagers going to another world, like Sword Art Online.
Mm-hmm.
And Generation 2 isekai is about overly abused salarymen going to another world. So this is a standard one like that. So she's a workaholic and she has a habit of overworking and she devotes all of her time to her career. And she seems to be one of those women who I think as we eventually depart this absolute nadir of Western culture where everybody's obsessed with work, career, money, possessions, and that sort of thing, and all of the women who devoted themselves to their career realized that they should have devoted themselves to having a family first because now they can't have kids because they're too old. At any rate, this is the pattern that you're seeing with a lot of these, and in this case the woman devoted everything to her career and then didn't, and it seems like she doesn't even know why. She just did. because it was the done thing. And she eventually just dropped dead from overwork. She wasn't taking care of herself, much like in Cells at Work Black. Although she wasn't actively abusing herself, she just wasn't resting properly.
So she just dropped dead.
Yeah, she just dropped dead because all she was doing was working.
I see.
And so she ends up as a glowing ball of light in the goddess's sitting room, having a conversation with her, and the goddess says basically she likes cute girls, so she's going to be super biased and give her whatever she wants. And so she just says, okay, I want to live a quiet and slow life, and I want to never die. And the goddess is just like, yep, okay, I'll give you a nice looking body too, and an age and features of my preference. So she gets reincarnated as a attractive 17-year-old blonde woman. And basically she never ages and she never dies. And she's only interested in living the most quiet life possible. So she basically gets herself set up with a house in the Highlands, there's a village at the bottom of the slope, and so she goes about a daily life of basically taking care of herself. She wanders down to the town every day, kills a few slimes on the way, because the only monsters that are around are level 1 slimes. So she doesn't have to worry about fighting or anything. She just slaps the slimes with a dagger and they die pretty much. And so she does this, and she goes down there. She does her shopping. She goes back home. She takes care of her garden, cooks, relaxes, basically leads the quiet life. And that's all she does. She interacts with the townspeople now and again. She passes the time by studying herbs and developing potions and that sort of thing. And occasionally she'll give medical services to the townspeople if she's about and that sort of thing. But the thing is that this carries on because she doesn't die for 300 years. And so 300 years pass, and she's just a fixture of the place now. She knows more about the town than anybody else still alive. Everybody knows her. She's the witch of the Highlands. And everybody has a friend or family member whose life has been saved by her at some point because she just happened to have medicine that they needed or whatever. She helped them out with something. And she doesn't really sense time passing because she's enjoying her relaxing life so much over the past 300 years. And she drops by the adventuring guild one day to sell off her handful of slime bits that she's picked up on the way down from the Highlands. And the current receptionist is like really, really curious to know what her stats are like, and can she please look at them? And the witch just sort of shrugs and is like, yeah, they haven't been checked in 300 years since I signed up from the Adventurers Guild to sell slime parts. So you can check if you want, I guess. And it turns out that her stats are through the roof. She's the strongest individual in the world. She's level 99 because at some point early in her random leveling up, she'd picked up a skill that gives you two bonus experience points for every monster killed, and slimes give 2 experience points. But she's been killing roughly 24 slimes every day for 300 years and getting 4 XP points apiece. And a dragon is only worth like 4,000 XP or something, but she's got like 10 million odd. So it turns out, without noticing it, she's become ridiculously powerful. And because people are nosy and some people can't keep their traps shut, basically, the series is, word starts to spread that the most powerful person in the world is a witch living in the Highlands here. And so she starts to get visitors, and that's how the series leads off.
Right.
So it's kind of a charming setup, and the main character has a nice laid-back personality. Her philosophy is all about making sure that you don't work too hard now. Like when she manages by the end of the episode to gain an unasked for apprentice, and basically says that to her that the reason why that she got so strong is by doing a modest amount of effort every day without trying too hard, and that trying too hard will lead you to an early grave. So that's what she has personal experience with. But yeah, so it's very easy watching. It's not gonna be anything ground shaking, I don't think, but it's easy watching. So it's quite a relaxing show, I think.
Yeah.
I watched the first episode of Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro, if only because the franchise is so well known. Originally it's from a web comic, from many, many years ago. And eventually it was formalized into a manga also many years ago, though a smaller number of many years ago. And now it's finally got an anime after it was, been famous for a long time. But basically, it's a story about an incredibly sort of shy and introverted amateur manga artist kid in high school who basically can't deal with anybody. He was bullied constantly through elementary school, and it's basically caused him to have an entirely turned in on himself personality. He can't deal with interactions with other people, basically. And after an accident where he drops his papers in the library, the girl Nagatoro basically develops an interest in him as a toy of sorts for entertainment. Nagatoro's his underclassman. She's a first year. He's a second year, and basically she teases and mocks him relentlessly. And basically that makes that her hobby of pestering him and making him cry, basically, because he can't handle how much he's being bullied. Now, the thing with this series having multiple points of origin, a webcomic and then an actual manga, is that in the original one, Nagatoro was basically just outright cruel. She was cruel to him for her amusement. And there are still shades of that there, but over the course of multiple adaptations, it's tempered her a bit. So she's definitely cruel to him, and it is for the sake of her in amusement, but she doesn't actually want him to suffer to an ever increasing degree anymore. Like her attitude towards him is certainly somebody who is toying with somebody else, but she does. It would be not quite 100% correct to say she has his best interests at heart, but if she sees something that she likes about him, that he's like, for a moment shows a sliver of a spine, she tends to encourage that sort of behavior, which is not how she was originally, but is how she is now. Unfortunately, the series still is what it is, and I watched it because it was well known and not because the premise is particularly interesting to me. And honestly, I just kept cringing all the time.
Ugh, that's worrying.
Like, constantly, and because that's what it's meant to do. You're meant to cringe at the utterly spineless, wimpy reactions that the main character has towards this younger girl who's just being a nuisance to him, and how he basically will just resort to crying at the drop of a hat because he doesn't have any. He got no balls. He's got no spine. It was bullied out of him at a young age, and so now he's just a wimp. But over the course of a long and ongoing story, eventually he does. It would be incorrect to say he grows a spine, but he's able to stand up for himself when it becomes really important.
Okay.
Eventually he gets there, but there's a lot of really mean-spirited teasing in between there and where he starts. So yeah, I think that anyone who watches it would be watching it because they already know the source material. It's a bit of a painful blind watch, I think, because Nagatoro is just cruel to him, basically. Just bullies him relentlessly. There's a little bit more tenderness in this version of her than in the original, but not a lot. Just enough to stop her being overtly hateable, just barely enough. I feel like that's what they were shooting for. But yeah, so I'm not really going to recommend it. I think that the people that watch it already know it and will watch it because they already know it. Something else I watched. What was it called, though? I can't find it on this list here. What was it? I think it was called Code Mars or something like that. At any rate, it's about vampires. It's set in sort of westernized Japan, like early westernized Japan. So they like the early days of the automobile sort of era. So they have automobiles, but they're ancient ones. But basically, the army has this proposal that they need, because the vampires are apparently a known scourge, and the army has a proposal to create a unit comprised of vampire agents, because just that much better at fighting, obviously, because they're supernaturally powerful and fast. The problem is that most people that get bitten by a vampire die, and their existence sort of gets frozen in that moment. Like the pilot episode is about a actress who is acting in the play Salome, about Herod's daughter. Famous play. And all she can do about 90% of the time is just recite her lines over and over again because she's stuck in the moment of her death and she died in a stage accident. And so this is basically what happens to most of them, although they have to investigate each one of these people because some of them show, bits and pieces of free thought, and the character in the pilot episode does eventually. She commits suicide by basically wandering out of the facility where she's being kept because she breaks out, and then deliberately exposes herself to sunlight, which is obviously the work of a conscious mind. But she's still only able to talk in terms of the play and the characters in the play. So she'll address people as Yokanan, for instance. But yeah, so it's a weird, but it's sort of like a artsy Japanese Hellsing, I guess, is the vibe,
right?
Or something like that. Hard to say. It really needs another episode because the pilot episode was of the very self-contained type. Like, you could just watch it as a one-shot, and it does not really require much additional explanation. So the actual world building that's liable to take place later. I don't know where it's going to go necessarily. What else? I'm trying to think of what else there could be that I haven't talked about but have watched. I have a feeling that there is some things perhaps that I don't recall offhand. Let's just see. I'll look up what is simulcasted on Anime Lab. Oh my goodness, it's logged me out. What a pain in the butt. I did watch the first episode of that Dragon Goes house hunting thing, and I just face palmed a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Episode 2, I find, picks up the pace and the bit, and it starts to really wear its memes on its sleeve.
Yeah, I haven't watched the second episode yet. I only watched the first one, and the first one, like if all I was going by was the first one, it would be sliding towards the don't watch category, because it was just a bit. Really, is this guy's only character trait that he's a wimp? Is that all? Is that all he can do?
That's pretty much it.
So yeah,
it's just the elf real estate agent / architect / demon lord is just so damn cool. He's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think that he's going to have to save it for me because in the first episode you don't really see very much of him.
No, he's there for maybe a minute and that's it.
Yeah. What else? I watched. Oh no! Hold on. See if I can call this to mind. Here we go. I watched the World Ends with You anime, and this is sort of a masterclass in how not to do an anime of a game.
Not again.
It feels like. I think that my gut reaction to it was even more negative than Devil Survivor 2 anime.
That's impressive in a way. Well, that's in the game too. But the Devil Survivor 2 had a whole lot of shoes when it came to adapting a video game story onto the screen.
The thing is that they were issues with the adaptation, right? Now, I feel like the issues here are to do with a lack of an attempt to adapt. Because it feels like, and I haven't played The World Ends With You. It was really, really cult classic back in the early DS days. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but it was super popular. I didn't play it. I don't know why it got such a cult following.
It's going to be hard to adapt it because of the way the story's told.
Yeah. Now, the thing is that what I saw watching the first episode was what I would describe as if you were to play a video game, plug your console into your VCR through to your TV, and then just hit record on the VCR, presuming our audience knows what a freaking VCR is.
They probably don't.
Press record on your VCR every time a cutscene starts, and stop every time the cutscene stops.
Oh, okay.
And then you grind, and then you press record when the cutscenes start, and then you press stop when it stops, and then you do the next bit of gameplay. That's how the anime feels.
For a version of that doesn't make us feel ancient, if you go to YouTube and just type in X video game the movie, and that's what you'll get.
See, well, that's what this feels like. Like, I can't get a sense for the happening of things at all, because it's just a series of encounters and climaxes.
Yeah, you won't be able to convey the video gaming nature of that world and how that's important to the story.
Yeah, the thing is that the world, the one thing that I got out of it is that the world, they're underground, that they are participating in whatever the heck it is that they're actually doing. It's obviously very gamey, but I don't see anyone playing, because they're basically skipping from major story event to major story event and boss fight to boss fight.
So
yeah. I don't understand what's taking place, because all I am seeing is climactic moments.
And that's going to doubly hurt, because a lot of the character connection that you feel with the characters in that game comes to how they integrate gameplay into the story. And that throughout The World Ends With You, these are minor spoilers for an ancient game, you will be assigned a different partner, and the other partner will be either unable to help Neku, or they'll be vanished from the setting for one reason or another at the end of every 7-day cycle. And Neku has to wake up and do everything with somebody totally different in personality and in gameplay style. And they really utilized the DS's 2 screens by having, I think Neku was always on the bottom, but the partner character was always at the top, and you had to control both at the same time during combat and gameplay.
Wonky.
And each character controlled radically differently for the partner character. So developing affection or hatred for that character is intentional in how their gameplay works. You will miss your first partner when you first lose her, because you don't have a gameplay system you're used to accessible to you anymore, and you have to learn something totally different, and you're not getting that at all with an adaptation in this game. And it's clearly built in to make you feel that way. The idea of fashion working and why the pins are important is explained in the story of the game, but acts as you getting equipment and having to go out of your way to get it, and learning why that particular piece of equipment's important. You can't get that in a TV show.
Well, it's not merely that I'm not getting these greater meta aspects to the storyline. I'm not really getting anything, period. Like, this doesn't simply... It feels non-functional from the standpoint as a story.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm even being told a story. I feel like I'm being shown cutscenes. It's really awkwardly put together. They've carried across the art style quite well, but that's about the only thing that is worth saying about it, really. It's not very well told. I don't know if there is a good way to tell it or not. I don't know how you could do it, but it really feels like it was a extraordinarily poor fit for the animated series format, and I can only assume that they must be re-releasing it on Switch or something to justify making an animation.
It'd be tough.
Announcement yet, but yeah.
It'd be tough, because that game relies on the 2 screens of the DS.
Let's see. The World Ends With You. Let's Wikipedia the IP and see if they've announced an additional version. A sequel, Neo: The World Ends With You, was announced at the same time as the anime for release on July 27 this year. Okay, so that's why it's being done. It's being done because they're doing a sequel, and this is supposed to be like a rush catch-up, I guess.
I guess, and it's hard to re-release that game. They probably wanted to just re-release the game, but it's too reliant on having the DS's dual screens for every single one of its gameplay mechanics. Changing that into something workable on the Switch is going to give you wonky split screen garbage no matter what you do. There's no getting around the fact you need 2 screens to play that game.
You end up with a weird picture-in-picture system that other games that have been ported to use.
Yeah, you need to actively control both characters simultaneously while they fight on 2 different screens for every single combat encounter, from your basic grunt enemies to your big bosses. Except for the very final boss, you only have to use Neko for that one. But you can't port that. You need something with 2 screens to port it.
At any rate, the short version is that it's really dumb. Like, it's not a good anime. It doesn't feel like one. I might watch, I might give it the standard 3 episodes maybe, to see if they can catch somehow.
How long is it?
I don't know how many episodes it's going to be.
Okay,
but it's a full length episode though. It's not a shorts or anything like that.
Okay, because the story they're trying to tell needs about 24.
I bet they won't get it.
Yeah, I bet they won't either.
At the pace that they're going, they might not need it, because they've fought a boss already by the end of the first episode, like in a concert venue or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Niku just seems like he's kind of a dick.
He is.
So, he's not a very likable main character, I gotta say.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I kind of want to slap this guy in the face.
Yeah.
He seems like he needs a punch in the chops.
He does. He's an antisocial.
At some point.
Well, I hope so, because he's a dick.
A big point of the story is figuring out why he's such a douchebag, and specifically there are magical finger wavy wooja reasons why that you get to eventually. But I get the feeling they won't quite have the same impact if you're not playing through the game.
Is he actually listening to anything on those headphones?
Sometimes. Although it's commented several times in various biographies and histories of him throughout the game that he will often just wear them without music just so people leave him alone because he hates other people.
Yeah, I can tell. Because he's a dick.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've never really liked that the having the point of view character be a humongous cockbag to everybody he runs into. It sort of annoys me.
Yeah, it's there is magical head screwy reasons why he's such a douchebag, but being that type of douchebag is still a part of his character. So you gotta get there. I haven't played it in a very long time, so I forget the exact details of it, but I do remember there was a reason why.
Anyway, that's that anime. Not that I liked it very much. Okay, the last one I'll talk about this time is let's see, it's another isekai. The Saint's magic power is omnipotent. So basically, this is another office worker, so it's Generation 2 isekai. She's just, a standard 20-year-old office worker. She's been in the workforce a couple of years now. Does nothing but work until late and then come home, then go to bed, then wake up and work again.
Sounds depressingly familiar.
But she gets isekai'd. But basically, she gets isekai'd to a world where it's one of those worlds which is sort of perpetually under siege by evil monsters type of thing. And normally in dire times, when things get really bad, a saint will be summoned automatically by the world. But when that doesn't happen, they've got a ritual to force the issue. It seems that they're not really as good at the ritual as they would like to be. So while she gets isekai'd, she's not the only one, because an actual sort of teenage girl protagonist also gets isekai'd. And so they ended up with 2 saints instead of 1, but there's only supposed to be 1 saint. And as much as anything else, the saint is supposed to be propaganda. And so they basically pick the younger one because she's more photogenic. And of course the prince takes a bit of liking to her because she's more his age. And so basically they've got 2 saints, and the other one is just some woman that they've grievously inconvenienced because they've destroyed her life basically. She can't ever go home. So they basically just are obliged to be nice to her because they owe her. They owe her a debt, essentially.
They owe her a life, basically.
Yeah. She's not terribly heartbroken because she realizes that her life had devolved into nothing but office work day in, day out. So more than anything, she's just kind of bored because it's sort of like a fantasy medieval world. There's not really anything to do, because she's got private rooms and she's got a maid waiting on her hand and foot, but she's bored out of her skull. There's no television, so so she basically takes to wandering around while she tries to decide what she's going to do with her new life, and basically has a run-in with a local equivalent to a scientist, I suppose. She wanders around. She ends up at a research institute where there's a bunch of researchers that live there, and they study herbs and they brew potions, and they act both as researchers in the field of alchemy as well as manufacturing the sort of bulk healing potions and that type of thing for the kingdom. And she was kind of into plants when she was alive, so she basically takes a liking to this and decides, and she requests permission to go and live at the institute and become one of the researchers there, and it's granted. So she makes a life there, and several months pass, and basically she's getting used to it, being a researcher, and basically enjoying life a lot more than she was. And it turns out, though, over the course of time that, well, she was summoned as the saint, and for some reason related to that, most likely, all of her potions come out more powerful than they should. And we're not talking sort of normal isekai protagonist more powerful, where they're earth-shatteringly powerful, but in fact they're so powerful it's inconvenient, but not powerful enough to be world-changing. Basically, all of her potions come out too powerful to put on the market because they fall outside their grading range, in the sense that she's only skilled enough to reliably make the lowest grade of potion, but they're all like 50% better, which is not good enough to make them medium grade potions. But it also means that it would distort the market if there was like one of the alchemists just happens to produce potions that are this much better. They can't be sold as part of the same batch. So they don't really know what to do with her, because she's clearly a prodigy, but nothing she makes is any good to them in the direct marketing sense.
Right.
So basically, it seems like that her route is going to end up being that she will end up making potions for the kingdom's supply for their military, because the military doesn't have to buy from the kingdom. But yeah, so she's definitely a prodigy in this field because she's got a reasonable head for the science, plus she's got this excessive magic power from being summoned to be an isekai protagonist. But yeah, so basically the series looks like it's going to be structured around her unsolicited heritage as the saint coming back to visit her, because it sounds like things are starting to go pear-shaped in the world outside of her closeted researcher life, because the girl who was made the formal saint is basically being kept entirely as a porcelain doll by the prince, away from any of the difficulties of the world, and so it's not doing any good to resolve the situation. She, on the other hand, is just a grunt and is being inexorably dragged into the situation due to her interactions with the military.
I see.
So it looks like, despite her being voted off the island, being voted off Protagonist Island, is going to get dragged back on it because the actual protagonist is not doing anything.
Protagonist Island.
I wouldn't want to live on Protagonist Island either.
I mean, who would sit in the one back from the back row next to the window? Who would sit there?
No, there's just as only back rows and windows.
Those are the only seats that exist in any given classroom.
Yeah.
But, yeah. At any rate, I found it quite easy to watch. It's not. It's not. They haven't decided to ladle superpowers and heroic status onto the main character immediately or anything like that. So, yeah, it's quite digestible. It's quite watchable.
It also appeals to the fantasy that research is actually research, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I left academia because it's not. I mean, you can do research in academia, you just can't really report on it in the real world. Like you because in order to get your money to do the research, you've got to frame it in terms of racial justice or climate change in your proposal. And then when you report on it, you have to report on it in terms of racial justice and climate change.
Ugh.
So, provided you can fulfill those two requirements, you can do as much actual research as you like. It just won't be good to anybody.
I just
So,
just write your report, and then between every sentence, just write one of those terms.
I mean, that does work sometimes.
That's depressing.
That's just how it is. Because nobody really does real peer review anymore, because they don't review the science. What they review is the narrative. It's like, oh, does this make sense with our worldview? Is what they're reading it in terms of. It's very Lysenkoist. It's
Working backwards from the conclusion is what it sounds like.
Well, the thing is, they don't really care about the conclusion, only the axioms. The axioms are about climate change and renewable things and the effect of race on everything. It's sort of like Nazi science crossed with communist Lysenkoist science. Is how all science is done now. So, yeah, there are niches where that is not the case in obscure journals that nobody reads. But if you go to like the major scientific publications like Science and Nature and Scientific American and those big publications, you'll find that all proper political propaganda pieces now. No actual science is reported on. New Scientist went that way a long time ago. Like, it was one of the first. I used to have a subscription to it, like, decade and a half ago, maybe 2 decades ago. And it was already sliding down that road 20 years ago. And nowadays it's unreadable dreck. So, yeah, the popular science has just presaged what actual academia would become. So, yeah, it is a fond fantasy that you can be a researcher and do things for the science of it. That's not really the real world, though. Science has always been done in service of politics to a greater or lesser extent. It's just that at this point, the politics has completely occluded the science. So,
well, science has become the national religion of the body politic.
No, Science TM is the national religion of the body politic. Can't forget about the TM.
Or TM capital S.
Yeah. And the exclamation point. And Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Hasn't he been changed? I think it's Brian Cox these days.
Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson is black.
He's still cited like he knows anything and doesn't just read. But
he is a staggering ignoramus. Like, he's just really, really dumb. And he was about to get Me Too'd, and then for some reason someone killed the story. Like, apparently he had, like most long-running professors who are of dubious moral content, had a lot of untoward reactions with graduate students. But yeah, somebody killed his Me Too story. It never actually happened. So when I say happened, I mean in the media. The media never did anything with it. It's sort of surprising, but
probably means it was true.
Yeah, probably means it was true, but he was needed for the cause. But yeah, if you are citing Neil deGrasse Tyson for any reason other than to make fun of him, you need to examine your life choices and examine the fact that maybe you should never comment on anything that comes within 100 feet of science. Anyway, I had my week there. I've prattled on for quite a while now.
All right, we should take a break then.
Yep, we're at an hour and a half. So here's some music, folks. We'll be right back.
Okay.
And we're back.
Yes, indeed.
So, we were nearing the end or at the end of All's Week when we went to break.
Yeah, I don't think I've got much else to talk about. There's probably a few more anime that I'll check out over the course of the week, but we'll see. I don't really expect any of them to be outstanding. There's not anything I was eagerly awaiting this season. I think only people that were eagerly awaiting anything were the Hero Aka fans.
Yeah, there's a couple of other things because I might watch it later, but nothing I'm really going to go out of my way for.
Hero Aka is a good show to have on I'll get around to watching the new season eventually.
Yeah.
And be fairly confident that I will, but it's not something I'm married to or a super big fan of.
It's something you can just sit back, switch off the brain, and enjoy.
It's the four Sherseys will watch, but I'm not particularly enthusiastic about the series.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll move to my week. My week was once again filled with a lot of work. So unfortunately, the best stories I have to tell all relate to real life. There just hasn't been much time for media.
Mm.
So the first story was last weekend. I noticed a problem with the alternator with my battery in my car. Or last week. So I ran out the next day and bought a new battery. That didn't fix the problem, so I busted out the multimeter, and sure enough, the battery wasn't charging. And that's not good, because I got to drive a lot for my job. So I can't have that happening, so I had to buy a new alternator. And originally, I was going to be lazy and just have a mechanic do it. Like, I got a little bit of money saved up. It won't be that big a hit in the wallet if I just have a mechanic do it right.
Nah.
What planet do you live on?
So, number one, you can't pre-buy the alternator and then just have them stick that in because it makes it so they can't mark up their prices and they'll upcharge you for that.
Make it cranky for it, yes.
Yeah, and they will probably do a terrible job because they're mad at you for not being able to make the full amount of money on this.
They're only going to go to the junker and get some piece of crap one.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. They still are going to mark it up as though it's a brand new alternator and then charge you double that. So they won't let you do that without giving you a ridiculous markup. And the labor itself is, in US dollars, somewhere between $600 and $800. So I'm like, it can't be that hard, right? Because when your choices are $250 US after I finally get around taking that core back to AutoZone of my old one versus $1,200 to have a mechanic do it and get an alternator from them, I figured, the hours spent to just figure it out myself were probably worth it.
Yeah, we thought our mechanics were a rip-off.
Yeah, no, they're a monster. So went shopping around, found one for $300, and I get $50 back if I take the core in. I'm like, okay, that'll work. I'll take that one. So I got that one, and it got here, and it was the right one, and that's great. Well, I took the alternator, the covers off, and got to the alternator last weekend, and then like, okay, yeah, I can totally get to this thing. It's not going to be a problem. Ordered the alternator and waited for it to get here. It got here on Monday or Tuesday, and so I specifically. I told my auto mechanic friend, and I told my dad, and I told them I wanted to try and figure it out myself. Because in future, if an alternator goes out in a car, it feels like something I need to have done at least once under my belt. But they both wanted to come, we'll put it, doesn't say they politely wanted to watch. What they really wanted to do
is look over your shoulder and criticize.
Is make fun of me the whole time.
There you go.
And laugh at me. So I'm sitting there with my socket set, sitting here staring at this thing, trying to look for the right screws to pull out, going to a YouTube video of a guy taking apart the necessary parts to get to it in my car. And I got through 90% of it without needing help, but I just did not how to do it with only two arms for two parts of it. Yes. The first part was to get the belt off of the alternator. I have a tension pulley where you push down and the entire system of belts gets lifted up and gets tension or loosens the tension in it. So I did not figure out in the 20 minutes I was pushing how in the world I could put enough force on the socket wrench to get the thing to lift up and how to reach over and get the belt off the alternator at the same time. So I had to have somebody come and push down on the socket wrench for that. It was explained to me later. There is a way to do it, and all you need to do. And this is how my mechanic friend's a girl. So you might be thinking, well, how in the world does she pop all these bolts and sockets? Well, she cheats. She puts a big, long, hollow metal tube over the end of her socket wrench to get more leverage.
Mm-hmm.
So that when she pushes down, she has like twice or 2 or 3 times the force she normally does.
That's a pretty standard trick. You can also use, if you've got good quality tools, as opposed to cheap ones, you can also just use another whatchamacallit, spanner. You can loop the ring of the spanner around the end of the socket wrench and use it to pull.
Yeah. Well,
if you have cheap tools, it will just bend. So
yeah, I have a standard and a metric socket set that I got on the cheap because I figured I would need them eventually. So they're not very, very robust tools. So had them. So I managed to get it out. I tried to stick the alternator in, and the alternator's not going in there because the stupid metal bushings on the end of it are 1/10 of an inch too big. So I had to. My initial impulse was to go get the grinder out. I was stopped from doing this. I guess, thankfully.
Yeah, don't do that.
And they're like, no. Just go get a vise and something rubbery, or 2 things that are relatively small and rubbery, and go get a vise. And so my dad got the vise out and put some kind of rubber things on the other end of it and handed me a hammer and said, okay, hit the vise and hit the little thing that spins once it won't go any tighter as hard as you can. And that got it to fit. So alternator was now in the car, but this adventure had made all the belts slip off of the pulleys. And this is not something I'm convinced can be done with one pair of hands without a whole lot of practice, which I didn't have. So I had to get somebody to hold the tension in the belts while I messed around with it. But I got it installed and it works, and I was mostly proud of myself for figuring it out, and it only taking one evening to do. Just one of those things you don't know you can do until you do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that probably depends on your car, though.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of cars where they just make all of the conveniently doable things for the user impossible to reach.
Proprietary screws.
Yeah, there was none of that.
Speaking of proprietary screws, I noticed that a lot of the screws involved in the Switch have three.
You do.
Yeah.
You do need a proprietary screw for the Switch. I had to take one apart a few months ago to help my cousin put a new fan in. And that thing's...
It's like half. Yeah. They can't decide whether it's a flathead or a Phillips.
Yeah,
and
they're
both.
They're not even both? Real metal. They're some kind of plasticky substance that shreds if you do not use the right screwdriver, and even when you do, they shred.
It is super soft, and yeah, you only get them out once. After that, you need new screws.
Like I had to disintegrate a couple of them, 1 or 2 of them, with his Switch because they just wouldn't come out, and the right screwdriver was too hard. And if you do not use a Nintendo certified special proprietary screw, it is apparently always going to be too hard for these screws and likely to strip them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a ton of messes with that. My car did not have any of this. It was all 10, 12, and 14 millimeter bolts.
Oh, good. Nice standard.
Just pulled
millimeters.
I had to pull the metric set out.
Yeah, the correct set.
Yeah, with American stuff.
I'm leaning more and more toward the American style because it's just the thing about metric that bothers me. There's only one thing about metric that really bothers me, and that's that the French were involved.
That is a definite downside.
I actually, when it comes to things like sockets, I prefer the metric system because it's much easier to keep track of what order they go in when you put the sockets back in the box.
Yeah, everything is base 10. It's just you put them in order.
Well, you just count.
You just count.
With the standard system, it is not at all like that. You will go. Some are measured in eighths. There's like 1/8 inch, 2/8 or 1/4, 3/8, and it alternates between fourths and eighths into how much of an inch it is. And you can get them backwards if you're just trying to put them in the thing too quickly. There's one that's 3 fists that's smack in there just after the middle of it. That's really weird.
Just why? Why do this?
So it's all fractions. So yeah, I got that done, and it was an adventure. If you have a car that doesn't have proprietary screws and bolts, you can get it out of there and do it yourself, I think. Unless it's... I have a tiny Japanese-style engine with my little Acura. But
Yeah.
I was still able to get to it. I just had to pull a couple fluid reservoirs, disconnect one tube, and yank the fan right behind the grill out.
Yeah, it depends car to car. Like, sometimes they've got all these other systems that are hooked together that you take one part out and you've got to replace the whole bit because reasons.
And if you ever have to put your belts back on to your pulleys, do not have anybody offering color commentary behind you while you're trying to look at the diagram to make sure you got them on right.
How much beer do they have?
None, but neither of them drink. But they had the brilliant idea that I was doing it wrong when at the end of the day, it turned out I was doing it right the first time. And they just kept trying to correct me. Like, no, that doesn't go around. Oh, wait, yeah, maybe it does. Oh, these grooves go on this one. I'm like, you two are the ones that are experienced with cars, and I got it on the first try with the diagram. But they're telling me they can see it. That's definitely not right. No, and then they get it on their way. Oh, no, wait a minute, that don't look right.
Gotta love that commentary.
So do not have the peanut gallery around when you are attempting to reattach belts. Just shut up and hold the tension so I can get it on the bottom. That's all I need you to do.
Alrighty.
So, that was that one.
Because we're actually limited on time, by the way.
Okay, I'll just cut my week out then. I didn't do anything else besides repair another old person's computer.
Oh, the old people computers. Actually, no, this one's worth telling.
Do they have Bonsai Buddy on it?
Not quite that bad.
It was pretty close to that bad. So my I guess I don't call him by a family name relation. He's just Papa Marion. He's my step granddad, I guess. My actual granddad on my dad's side of the family died before I was born, but he was my grandma was already remarried before I was born as well, so he's always filled that slot.
Yep.
So he does not know a thing about computers. He's worked in manual labor factories all his life, or worked at motorcycle repair shops. He doesn't understand technology at all, and he's like almost 90. So he needs to get into his computer to access his email because he forgot the password to his email address, and his bank was sending information to his email address that he needed for taxes or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. But he also couldn't log into his computer because the password that he had written down wasn't working, and he had no idea why. For reference, he's on this computer, this little laptop, for 7 or 8 years and has only booted it up like once a year when my dad calls him and says it's time to do your taxes. So my dad can't figure it out, so he calls me in to help. And the first thing I notice is this thing takes 25 minutes to boot up. I'm like, okay, it's pretty old, but this is ridiculous.
Well, Bonsai Buddy's so demanding on the system, man.
Yeah, he had something worse than Bonsai Buddy. I don't know how this happened, but he had 4 antiviruses on the computer. He had Malwarebytes, he had Norton, he had McAfee, and he had AVG.
Why?
Malwarebytes had to be on there because someone tried to clean it up at some point.
Somebody dumb that had heard of it once stuck it on there, I guess.
Yeah. Norton's approach to antivirus is if your computer is bricked, you can't get a virus.
Yeah, we are the virus. Yeah, that's how McAfee and Norton work. They are the virus.
They are worse than the cure.
Yeah, the cure is worse than the virus in that case. So I spent the first hour and a half just uninstalling these antivirus and having to reboot the PC. And every time I'd remove one and have to reboot, it would go a little bit faster. And finally got all those off. He's got Power Director installed, video editing software that you can't turn off because it's an older version. And it's always running in the background, eating tons of video memory. So I had to kill that. And I finally got all that off. And I noticed something weird, that there's no way it was in the box as part of the bloatware. and there is no way he put it on there himself. And he has Hamachi installed on there, or some variant of Hamachi, whatever it's called now. Local area network. Yeah, local area network simulation software. And it has the Hamachi logo. I'm like, why did you install this?
So it's not just Hamachi, it sounds like off-brand dodgy Hamachi.
Yeah. So he tells me that he got his brother or something to come help him install a printer. But what I eventually weaseled out and puzzled through was his brother didn't actually know how to fix and install that printer, or whatever needed doing for that printer, because it was probably just a plug and play printer that didn't need installing. He called somebody that he knew and gave them remote access to the computer.
Oh boy.
Because because we could not get into the main user account on his computer, and the reason we were able to uninstall stuff at all is because there was a test user profile. Test is not a standard Microsoft alternate login.
No, it is not.
So this was how he would get into his computer, and it had no password, and it would auto log into this one. So whoever was putting the printer software on the computer had made this stupid alternate account and had given it full administrative privileges, which took me forever to figure out that they did, because I was thinking I just couldn't do stuff with a guest account, because I was treating it like a guest account until I finally thought about it for half a second and went, wait a minute. There is no naming convention that auto sets up a user profile called test. Not with Microsoft computers. And got Hamachi off, got rid of any other third-party garbage, and could not get the main access to his account from his main user account on the computer, because he's also doesn't have a Microsoft account registered to it because he's old. Mm-hmm. He only has a phone number that he no longer owns as the recovery phone number for that account. So that user profile is just dead. But all it had was his Google Chrome history from the few times he's used it, and a password index that was not disguised like a password index. So eventually I managed to get through to his user profile, open app data, and dig his password history out of Chrome, write that down, and say, okay, the next thing you need to do. And I told my dad, because he knows how to do this part, and I'm like, you need to format this hard drive. Because this thing is busted. Somebody did something, and it broke. And so they figured they'd do that after they got the taxes done. But it was a mess. Why is it always with old people? The first thing you notice when you come to fix their quote-unquote computer problems is they have multiple antiviruses installed. 4 is a pretty big number. Usually it's only 2.
Because when something goes wrong, they react to it by trying to cure it. And the way that they think they can cure it is using an antivirus. Because if you put an antivirus program on, that solves everything, right?
It's supposed to.
Yeah.
Like if logic. Yeah, if you know nothing about computers, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh well, antivirus is basically medicine for your computer, right? So if the computer is sick, all we need to do is give it some medicine.
But just like actual medicine, do not mix antivirus, because they react poorly.
Yeah,
I don't use one at all. So
yeah, I just use Malwarebytes, and that's it.
I just use Windows Defender.
I keep it installed Malwarebytes disabled most of the time, and only flip it on to run when there's problems, usually. But Malwarebytes used to, a long time ago, have a warning that it was for removing antivirus only, and you should not keep it installed if you're not planning to do a hyperscan and clean your computer, because it's going to eat all your system resources.
Yeah, they've streamlined it a lot since then, so it can perform background checks and things for you.
Yeah, now it has standard antivirus features.
And when it's not doing anything, it will just sit quietly in a corner of your hard drive and do nothing.
Yeah, but it did not used to be like that. It used to be you only installed this as a last resort. Like something has gone horribly wrong and you can't dig it out.
This is how you scrub your system with it.
Yeah, and that's because they were honest about it. Norton and McAfee are just as bad with system resource use, and they do not. Yeah, and they just vomit ads on you and all kinds of extra bloatware and systemware that you don't need. And then I don't know how Cyberlink Power Director got on there. That thing is it's the not free but cheap video editing software alternative.
It probably came free with something, though.
There was something fairly commonplace that actually installed it at one point.
Probably CD writers or something for people who are trying to store home video.
Yeah, so a package like that somewhere.
So yeah, those were the 5 main things I had to kill on it. And I'm just sitting here thinking of how many times and how many old people I have to go and fix the computer for, and they all react the exact same way. Like you're a wizard.
You're a Harry wizard.
Yeah. It's just, especially because the whole time I'm complaining out loud to myself about what in the world did somebody do to this thing.
Yeah.
And calling them all kinds of names that are not appropriate to call somebody you're friends with.
It's like the old equivalent used to be you'd power up someone's computer to have a look at it, and they had like 12 hotbars installed and Bonzi Buddy.
Yeah, that's the hotbars have gotten less popular, thankfully, and most browsers don't support extra hotbars anymore, or they're very hard to get to work.
Yeah.
So you can't just tag them into programs. Although, what was it? We were working on the Minecraft server, and I had to download that FTP thing and accidentally forgot to uncheck the McAfee toolbar.
Yeah, you always install McAfee on your computer.
Yeah, I had it on my computer for like 3 seconds and had to go rip it out.
Yeah, I've done that before.
McAfee the guy is also about as much of a toxic character as his antivirus.
Yeah, I haven't...
Isn't he like a member of the Libertarian Party or something?
He's a nut. I don't know how much of the media I trust on reporting McAfee the guy, but he's still a nut. So, yeah, that's my real life stories. I did no media. I watched nothing. I listened to nothing. I played nothing. I just worked and came home to car problems and old people problems.
Yay. Incidentally, it's funny we mentioned Bonzi Buddy. I got YouTube algorithm threw up to me, I think it was yesterday, a documentary calling it Bonzi Buddy, the world's friendliest virus.
Yeah, why would you, even if you wanted Bonzi Buddy for what it advertised, you know, the Microsoft paperclip for your entire desktop?
Because it was a gimmick.
Why would you think that is something you need in your life?
Because it was the 90s as well.
Because it's a cute kid's character or something.
It was cute, it was a gimmick, and it was something interesting. But, yeah, it was also horrendous adware and spyware.
Yeah. So...
and it would do unspeakable things to your system performance.
So the moral of the story, kids, is regardless of if you have a degree in this stuff like I nominally do, you're going to be asked at some point in your life, if you're still living near your family or with your family, to help the aged deal with computer problems. And you best get used to it and figure out obtuse solutions to weird old people would do to a computer now.
Which reminds me, I probably should actually buy a new power supply before my dad blows the next one up. I have no idea what he does, but yeah.
What?
I have no idea if he's killed like 2 or 3 power supplies.
Without killing the computer?
Without killing... well, no, he killed one computer died.
Because that's kind of impressive. If you can actually kill the power supply without killing the computer on the regular, then that's incredible.
Power supplies die on their own often enough. I have no idea what the go with this whole thing was.
He's got something either plugged into the computer that's overdrawing, or his socket that he's got that thing plugged into is not insulated properly.
Also, its computer is actually a fairly powerful system. It can game quite well, but it still takes like 10 minutes to boot up, and I have no idea why. And I don't want to sit down and figure it out.
The amount of random garbage. If you go to the old control panel, not the new settings, apps window, whatever.
I avoid that thing like the plague.
You have to go to it to rip some things out these days, but
yeah,
you can get most stuff from the old control layer or the old control panel looking thing. If you go in there on an old person's computer, your jaw will drop every single time, no matter how many times you have to do this, of just what the heck they have installed on their computer. And you need to do it when they're not looking, because things will sound official or important, especially stuff with names from that thing's manufacturer, because old people don't format their drives when they buy a new computer, or they don't build their computers from scratch.
Yeah.
So they come with all the bloatware,
Do you
including
ever encounter, by the way, system boosters? What
Yes,
they are,
yes, I've heard of them.
yes.
yeah, Harvey Norman actually sold them for a while, of all things. But yeah, it's pieces of software that claim they will like allow you to use 20% more of your RAM or something like that.
Or they'll disable unnecessary things.
Yeah, what they actually do is, at best, nothing.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate.
If you're lucky, they will do nothing. And they will just flub some numbers in your system settings, and that's about it. But
If you're unlucky, they are spyware.
very much so, yeah. And then, but the thing is these things for a while were market legal to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd pay like $10-20 for one of these CDs to install this software, which was at best flubbing your numbers. So I'm glad that got stomped on.
Encountered a few similar type pieces of software on old people computers. Find the worst is the manufacturer stuff, like Toshiba sound amplifier or something weird like that. Manufacturer name and then thing that sounds like it's important for your computer.
We're looking at you, Dell.
Yeah, every single manufacturer has a crap load of these they dump on your system that just give information back to the company.
If they do anything at all, yeah.
Or offer a paid feature version of it.
Well,
that you
in
can download.
in the case of laptops, though, sometimes they've got sort of semi-proprietary driver software, and you've got to use their software to get it because it's only on their servers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but still, for the general rule of thumb, with anything installed in that control panel, and especially on an old person's computer, if it was really important, they can go get it later. They can go get it again.
And they will. And you'll have to uninstall it again later.
So, if you accidentally uninstall something important, you can download it again later. This is a rule of thumb whenever you see something, even in your own computer, that's wonky inside your programs and file stuff. If you don't know what it is, if it was important, you can go get it again later.
Anyway, we should move on because we got an email.
Yes, we do. An email that we're going to get in trouble for.
Oh my, yes, because it's going to involve a rant, this one.
Even if it doesn't invoke a rant, I think that by itself it's enough to get us in trouble.
Yeah, do the thing. I'm trying to keep an eye on this game now.
Oh, you want me to do the thing?
I want you to do the thing. I'm too sleepy.
Okay, so this is an email from our usual contributor, Serathis. Dear No Excuses, first things first, grab any number of oppressed drop-ins from this. And he's enclosed a clip of Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls and play when appropriate. Unfortunately, we're not sufficiently organised to do that kind of thing, but
yeah,
I can drop it in the live show chat for y'all, though.
Please do. It was one of the most one of my favourite episodes, actually. Mojo Jojo just screaming, "I'm being repressed," and all these hippies coming out of nowhere and protesting. So yeah, good episode and disturbingly poignant.
yes, and also prescient.
Yes.
Anyway, he goes on. With my East European superpowers, I called the whole thing with AOT. A season or two ago, when they revealed that despite being the oppressed peoples in the Empire, one particular oppressed family is the actual power behind the throne. Who could that be an allegory for, I wonder, thinking emoji. Another East European superpower is not seeing skin colour. We see ethnicity, because Romanians are white too.
Oh, no.
For those that don't know, Hungarians don't like Romanians very much.
No, they do not.
No, I do not know the dichotomy here, but it seems to be a bit more than how the English hate the Scots.
No, the English don't really hate the Scots anywhere near as much as the Scots hate the English.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Celt versus Anglo-Saxon thing, in that case. And I don't think that this is quite similar though, because it's sort of it's got all sorts of other dimensions to it. Anyway, he goes on to insert a meme. I wonder why he's so meme heavy. No one, absolutely no one, CW. We need a live-action Powerpuff Girls show where the girls are 20-something disillusioned thoughts.
No!
Right in the childhood. Turk from Scrubs wanted to create perfect little girls, but he accidentally added chemical N. I gotta give them props. Instead of doing it to the redhead, they race swapped to the tomboy. Expectations are subverted, I guess. Serathis. He's got a postscript. N stands for noir, of course, you Nazis.
Sure it does.
So, there should be a process, I think, at Cartoon Network at this point. If somebody who walks in and says, I know, we should reboot Powerpuff Girls, that person is immediately fired.
I just think that they should not be allowed to have ideas anymore.
Yeah, it's just, no. It has
Generally.
never worked. Every time they've tried it, they've gotten it horribly, spectacularly wrong.
Yeah, it's. I got a great idea, guys. Let's reboot. Seems to be result in the marketing team snapping their fingers and going, "Yeah, let's do that."
Instead have some money.
It doesn't matter where you work. That seems to be the outcome.
Yeah, stop it. Just because you're creatively bankrupt.
So yeah, I don't relate to his Eastern European superpowers.
Leaving that alone.
Eastern Europe is a patchwork of ethnically divided former Soviet states which have arbitrary borders. So yeah, it's a mess. I mean, for instance, the Balkans are in Eastern Europe. From whence we get the term Balkanize.
I hear things are getting pretty rough over there, Serathis. You be careful. I've heard not good things are happening near that area of the world.
Not really in Hungary. The worst that Hungarians have to deal with for the most part is an unbelievably corrupt government, just like everywhere else.
When it comes to the Eastern European countries, in my head, on my head map, they get shuffled around every time I look at the map because I forget where they all are relative to each other.
Oh dear. So yeah, I've seen a shot from the new Powerpuff Girls. It's basically the three girls just standing around, and not only do their costumes look like someone's just taken some raw cotton and dyed it and given it to them as a costume.
Like it's like sub cosplay tier.
Yeah, it is sub cosplay tier. It is. They just look really cheap. Live action Powerpuff Girls just does not work.
They're ultra super deformed designs was sort of the point. Where
there were several gags and episodes about how they had no thumbs.
Yeah, or fingers at all.
Yeah. Stuff just kind of magnetized to their hands when they wanted it to.
Yeah, they still had functional hands somehow, but no fingers.
So
that's super powered.
There was one episode that made fun of just how square Professor Utonium was.
Yeah, him being Turk from Scrubs. Talk about Scrubs typecast everybody that ever was in it, especially the two male leads, as being those guys from Scrubs.
Yeah.
It is very hard to look at any actor that was in Scrubs and thinking of them as anything other than the guy from Scrubs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that show went on for so long. I can't really say on
and it was enjoyable, except for the last season.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a consistently funny show for most of its run, with only a few hiccups. I used to go back and rewatch Scrubs every once in a while and just leave it on in the background. But because of that, every single actor in Scrubs is just that guy from Scrubs for me.
Yeah.
Like, you can say that guy's name is Zach Braff, but he's just JD.
He's JD. He's always going to be JD. So, yeah, just... We've done reboots of Powerpuff Girls before. Like, the anime reboot was awful. We've had that edgy modern version, which was awful. Most of them don't even last one season.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing with these reboots. You hear about a lot of reboots happening, and you hear about them starting.
Although I think
you never hear about them again.
I think I can create a way for Cartoon Network's board to all have a heart attack and possibly just stroke out completely. Propose a reboot of Billy and Mandy.
No,
would
I
be
can't
tough.
see that happening.
That ain't happening.
I can't see that happening.
That show
the
was
old
dark.
Yeah. The old an old teacher I had back in high school actually went to go work for Cartoon Network. I don't know what he did,
Okay.
but he moved down to Atlanta to go permanently work over at Cartoon Network.
Eh.
Matt Day, that was his name. Couldn't
Oh,
remember my teacher's name.
You're getting old, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. We've only got about 10 minutes left, so let's quickly rattle some news and get out of here, shall we?
All right. Thanks for the email, Sarathus.
All right. Quick fire news round. Let's go.
Interesting stuff. There's one I want to talk about. The Nier Automata PC port has had issues, and the issues have been addressed on every single distribution service except for Steam.
Yes.
for some reason.
For some reason, it was just never addressed on Steam, and they are finally doing it after everyone got really up in arms because
Yeah, you're releasing Nier Replicant, whatever the heck they're calling the remake,
Auto
and
Tomato.
but the Auto Tomato game still isn't fixed. It still doesn't work on Steam. So you're going to come in with a sequel with a broken product. And this apparently was enough to get Square Enix to go, oh, yeah, right, I guess we should get on that.
The Steam version exists, doesn't it? We should do that.
It's only the PC version we make the most sales on.
Yeah.
How could we possibly forget?
The reason people got really up in arms about it is because the Steam version's been out for a while, but the Games for Windows Live version is coming out with all these fixes in place.
Yeah. That was the first outcry, was when the Windows version came out. I remember people were complaining that, why does this have a patch that fixes all the issues that we had to wait on a fan patch to fix for the Steam version?
Yeah.
But they just never gave an answer and never fixed the Steam version. Just kind of pretended it didn't exist, from what I understand.
All right. Next article. We have a date for the Western beta for PSO2 New Genesis.
We do.
It's May 14th.
Given the nature of PSO2, I'm not particularly interested in the beta.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
just
I've
not interested. I'm just not interested in betas in general for MMOs. Like, I participated in an MMO beta once, and I just sort of regretted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just an extended demo at this point, and maybe they'll take the reports to fix something last minute.
But you almost never get to keep any of the stuff you did, and I ended up feeling like I wasted my time.
Yeah, the other less common form is play the game while it's still broken and bad.
Yeah, it's tell us if we missed something, and when inevitably we did, make sure that you write it in a nice big long form report and do our job for us, so we don't have to pay somebody to.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to put that away. Next article.
I almost posted this one too, Vol. You dumped this one. The PS5 is reportedly the fastest selling console in U.S. history. But
I still have no idea how.
Well, they sold all that they made, so their rate of selling is roughly equivalent to their rate of manufacture. The big question I had was not really how, but why.
Yeah.
Also,
what are people actually doing with them once they've got them? Well,
here's the other thing with the PS5 and why I don't think any data on its sales is usable. How much of that went to scalpers? Because it's the most scalped system in the history of mainstream video game consoles.
Well, yes, it is.
They only go how many they shipped. They don't know how many are going on the seconds market. And the ones that end up on the secondary market, they are still getting sold. So
yeah, but this article in particular is talking about how fast the units move. So while those are selling, they also eat the entire stock day one. So of course the units are going to sell stupidly fast and as soon as the market's filled up, because we have a scalper epidemic in the PS5 market that's literally buying every single one they can.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure why people actually want it so badly.
That said, the Switch is still the best selling.
Yep.
Because they basically, they own the entirety of the handheld market on one console now.
So yeah.
All right.
Y'all got any that particularly jumped out at you?
quick one from last week is there's a remaster of Alex Kidd in Miracle World coming out. This game was my childhood. It was the very first proper video game I actually played on the Master System. So that's a thing, and they're keeping the weird westernizations that they put into it too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they didn't. I guess they haven't tried to reboot it tons of times. That's something.
Oh, Sonic murdered Alex Kidd.
Yeah, I remember when it was popular in the Master System 2. It was like one of their best-selling games. But
well, Master System 2, they sold with one of two games on it. One was Hang On, which is a motorcycle racing game, and it was kind of bad. And the other was Alex Kidd in Miracle World.
Yeah, I never played it on the Master System.
Yeah.
So
my grandmother actually still has a working Master System 2. The games will probably not work so much anymore, but you never know.
The batteries and the things are almost certainly dead just from age.
Just age.
Yeah, the save batteries. Well, did they have save batteries in Master System games? I don't remember.
Oh, hang on.
I'm not sure they did.
Have to look that up, I think. They were on cartridge saves for some games.
Yeah, those came out mid-NES life cycle, because I think of the NES to N64 generation in terms of Nintendo consoles, not Sega consoles.
Most people do.
So save batteries didn't start getting introduced into cartridges until near the end of the NES cycle.
Yeah, a lot of games at that period were using a code system.
Password system.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
If it doesn't use a save battery, that might work.
Yeah, maybe. It wasn't until the Mega Drive that onboard save batteries were really a thing on the Sega line.
Mobile game stuff.
Mobile game. I don't want to talk about that. You
want to talk about
Codename X?
No, it's a mobile game, and I don't have time for gotcha mobile games right now.
All right,
so it's not even on my radar.
I don't really want to talk about Fallout 76.
China's removing boobies.
Yeah. The boobies. The thing is that I don't feel. Basically, the short version of this is that China has decided that they're censoring Azure Lane. This is the makers of Azure Lane are based in China, and they've always been in a difficult relationship with the government because they always want to create more boobies, basically.
Because boobies sell.
And
say what you want, but boobies sell.
Don't like that because it's not very I don't know. It doesn't meet their cultural standards that they want to impose on their people, so they are always trying to censor things like that. So there is actually censored art versions of the Azure Lane characters that exist on the China version, but apparently they're just removing them now. But the selections of the ones that they chose to remove are very strange. Like, it's not that they picked the ones that had the most revealing outfits. It's just mostly that they picked the ones with the largest bust. Like that's the bulk of it. Like, I mean, the top few bust sizes are like Sirius, Belfast, Illustrious, Taiho, the Kitsune Sisters, Fuso, those ones. They're the characters with the largest bust sizes, and they've all been hit by this, even if they aren't typically depicted in revealing costumes. It just seems like it's boobies they don't like. I guess.
I guess that's making Chinese people admire Western women more because Western women have bigger chests in general, and they can't have that in the CCP or something.
Well, I mean, half the ones that have been hit are Japanese ships.
Oh yeah, well the Chinese and the Japanese hate each other.
Yeah.
So, well, there are bigger problems with Azure Lane then, because there are very few Chinese ships because China basically didn't have a navy to speak of at the time. So yeah. At any rate, it struck me as kind of weird because they're trying to get rid of what they think of as being too erotic, but they've chosen a completely arbitrary way of going about it. It's very, very curious that they've picked particular ones to get rid of.
Yes.
I guess the thing is that there are also tons and tons of characters, far more than here, that have the obligatory swimsuit outfit. Because the major monetization method for Azure Lane is skins for the characters. And virtually all of them at this point have a swimsuit.
Yeah.
But despite which they have selected this tiny little cross section of only those ones which have big boobs. Although they've missed out some that have incredibly salacious outfits and incredibly large boobs, like USS Honolulu isn't on the list, I don't think. And she's probably the number one offender for fan service and didn't get censored. So, yeah, I just don't really understand how they're going about this. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And yeah, it's very strange.
And now that we've had our obligatory discussion about boobies, it's actually time to wrap up.
Oh, we're not going to talk about butts?
No, I don't have time to talk about butts.
But Diablo 2.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my second grade math teacher's butt. Let's get out of here.
My introduction to this conflict was from a clip of Kiara's stream anyway, so.
All right. Well, I imagine we'll be able to add it to our.
It's not ending. It's not ending anytime soon. They've only released 3 of the characters for beta so far, I think, or alpha. I should say.
Yeah.
We will get plenty of opportunity to rag on Blizzard for being terrible at making characters. So yeah. Closing comments, I guess, since Fern's got to run.
I don't want to work.
It's ma'am.
I don't want to work anymore either. Find a way to make us be able to be fat, lazy people that sit at home all day and write us an email about it.
I wish.
All right, folks. Since Fern's got to get out here, we'll go ahead and let you go. See you next week. Sayonara. Bye bye.